Today, I am going to unmask something that is probably hiding in your pantry and quietly wrecking your metabolism. It is not sugar, and it is not the home-cooked starch your grandmother used. This is an industrialized, modified starch engineered to behave like a fast-acting carb and to blend into nearly any product. It spikes your blood glucose in seconds, promotes visceral fat around the organs, and quietly fuels insulin resistance. Right now, imagine a bright white sack, the kind that sits dusty on a warehouse floor, sold by the ton and sold for pennies per pound. I will explain how manufacturers change natural starches with chemical reactions, show you the studies and safety claims the industry points to, and at the end, I will give you a simple checklist and an app you can use at the store. Are you ready to find out which carb is hiding in 70% of processed foods in your kitchen? Stay with me because I promise practical steps you can apply today. No jargon, just actions. But what exactly is this ingredient and how does it act in your body? Think of ordinary starch as a slow-release battery of glucose. When you eat whole potato or brown rice, you get a steady trickle of sugar into the bloodstream. Industrialized modified starch is reshaped so the battery dumps all its charge in a blink. Chemists take native starch and alter its physical structure through chemical groups that make it more soluble, more stable, and cheaper to use. Names you will see on a label include acetylated starch, cross-linked starch, hydroxypropyl starch, and octenyl succinic starch. These modifications change how enzymes in saliva and the small intestine access the molecule, so digestion is faster and glycemia shoots up. Contrast that with intact starches in whole foods that are bound up with fiber and resistant structures so the body releases glucose slowly. Imagine crunching a ceramic tile versus chewing a soft sponge. That is the difference in digestive experience. In simple terms, modified means industrialized and refined, not natural. In industrial processing, they use steps that sound technical but matter to your health. Manufacturers apply heat, acid, or alkaline treatments, then reagents to add acetyl groups or hydroxypropyl chains. They may apply small amounts of sodium or calcium salts for texture, and sometimes enzymes to pre-digest parts of the molecule. These processes create molecules labeled as modified. Regulators in some countries consider many of these changes GRA, which means generally recognized as safe, but the label does not imply metabolic neutrality. Studies reported in nutrition journals show higher postprandial glucose and insulin after foods containing these starches compared to similar whole foods. Dr. Patel, an endocrinologist, told me in an interview that the metabolic effect is not trivial and that repeated small spikes in glucose train the body toward inflammation and fat storage. Lab images show glossy, almost plastic-like granules under the microscope. In your mouth, you feel no.
Warning: the texture is smooth, the taste muted, the sound is the same as any powdered ingredient, but the chemistry has changed. This chemical makeover leads to concrete health effects. When you eat these modified starches often, your liver converts excess glucose to triglycerides and deposits fat in the viscera. Patients I work with complain of afternoon slumps, brain fog, and bloating after eating supposedly healthy packaged meals. A typical story. Anna thought swapping bread for gluten-free crackers would help her energy. Marcus noticed his waistline expanding despite cutting sweets. Sophia found her fasting glucose creeping upward. Clinical observations link diets high in refined industrial carbs to fatty liver, increased markers of inflammation, and higher fasting insulin. Imagine your arteries absorbing tiny unseen spikes, inflammation like heat radiating from inside your body, joints that ache after meals that used to be harmless. Epidemiological data suggest populations who move from whole food patterns to ultra-processed diets see rises in metabolic disease. A review in a peer-reviewed journal highlighted a consistent pattern of metabolic harm with diets high in rapidly digestible processed carbs. Now picture a supermarket aisle. Close up, you see glossy packaging, bright images, a whisper of vanilla from bakery shelves, the soft rustle of film as you squeeze a loaf. You read a label that says reduced sugar, and the ingredients list seems innocent. But there it is in the middle of the list, written as modified starch or by a technical name you do not recognize. I asked the cashier, Emma, and she said she sees packages with these terms all the time. I spoke to Carlos, a father of two, who opened a box of instant mash that smelled faintly of chemicals and felt powdery between his fingers. I thought instant meant convenient, he said, not this. Here is a short exchange I recorded in the aisle that shows how common the surprise is. Do you see modified starch on this? I asked. Yes, Emma replied, but it sounds safe. Does safe mean it will not spike a blood sugar? I asked. I did not know that, Emma said. I will check next time, she added. That sequence of simple questions and answers happens in grocery trips across the country every day. If you are surprised, you are not alone. Me and others in this community often hear stories like Anna, who replaced cereal with a touted healthy bar and saw her glucose rise. Marcus, who eats ready meals and developed fatty liver. Dr. Patel, who sees patients whose numbers do not match their reported sugar intake because of hidden rapid carbs. Sophia, a baker who learned to use tapioca instead of modified starch in her recipes. And Carlos, who started scanning labels with a free app and found 15 items in his cart with modified starch. Your exposure is larger than you think. Estimates indicate between 55 and 75% of packaged breads, bakery products, and a high share of gluten-free alternatives contain
some form of modified starch. Infant formula in some markets also includes maltodextrins, which are rapidly digestible and act like fast carbs. That means even babies can be exposed in certain formulas. These are not abstract risks, they are measurable. Here is what you can do right now. Step 1. Read labels for words like modified starch, maltodextrin, pre-gelatinized starch, acetylated starch, and hydroxypropyl starch, and avoid products where these appear near the top of the list. Step 2. Prefer whole foods such as whole grains, legumes, and intact tubers where starch is packaged with fiber. Step 3. Use an app with an algorithm to flag industrialized starches and to suggest alternatives. I recommend a simple checklist you can screenshot. Scan the label. If any of the key terms appear, mark it avoid. If product claims reduced sugar, check the ingredient list anyway. And prioritize cooking at home twice a week. In a brief interview, Dr. Patel said that small changes add up. Swap instant mixes for slow-cooked grains. Choose plain yogurt with fruit instead of flavored cups. And reintroduce whole potatoes over instant flakes. Practical demos can be sensory-rich. Feel the dryness of powdered mixes between your fingers. Smell the flat chemical note of some instant products. Taste the hollow sweetness of bars that hide the starch. Listen to the crunch of a fresh apple compared to a packaged crisp. When deciding alternatives, consider texture and function. In baking, you can often replace modified starch with nut flours, oat flour, or a mix of whole grain flours to preserve mouthfeel. For thickening in sauces, use pureed vegetables or whole grain flours slowly cooked so they lose the rapid digestion trait. Anna, a nutritionist in my network, shares recipes that mimic texture without industrial modifiers. Marcus swapped instant mashed for roasted sweet potato and felt more stable energy in days. Sophia, the baker, reformulated her gluten-free pastry with psyllium and whole grain rice and kept a flaky crust. Use the app algorithm I mentioned to scan and get instant flags and suggested swaps. It uses a simple rule set that prioritizes ingredient names and ranks products by processing score so you can choose a lower risk option in seconds. To wrap up, remember, this is not about fear. It is about clarity. In summary, a cheap, industrialized modified starch acts like a fast-burning carb. It is prevalent in ultra-processed foods. It elevates glycemia, promotes visceral fat, and feeds inflammation. 3 immediate actions you can take are: read labels using the list of terms I gave, choose minimally processed whole foods more often, and install the scanner app to speed shopping decisions. Share what you find in the comments with the exact product name, or start your comment with "My Pantry" and add the item. Because when you post, we will compile the most common products and make a follow-up video to analyze them. If you want a quick resource, I will pin a checklist and scan the app link below.
Next, we will dig into how seed oils interact with these fast carbs in frying and in ready meals and why that combination is particularly inflammatory. If you learned something, share this video with someone who shops for your family. And subscribe to follow the investigation. With information and small swaps, your pantry can stop being an unseen threat and become an ally for your health.